Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Leticia James and James Comey are almost certainly going to face new indictments. Leticia James for mortgage fraud, according to Fox News and other reports. Hit subscribe. Check this out.
It's important that attorneys general representing our respective states stand up and enforce the rule of law. The President of these United States is not above the law.
And one would assume also that James Comey and Leticia James and others, Hillary Clinton, are not above the law. They've been above the law up until recently. Let's continue. Hit subscribe. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel as well if you want to give a super thanks. And by the way, we'll have a live stream tonight around 9 p.m. Eastern.
No matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are, everyone must play by the same rules.
Please sue him for us.
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the
Could you imagine if President Trump has said a lot of things on Truth Social, God bless him, but he's never asked anyone, oh, please sue this person for us. That's never, ever happened.
And now the Trump Justice Department may be a pain in her you-know-what. The Angle has obtained shocking allegations leveled by the Trump administration against New York Attorney General Leticia James. The Federal Housing Finance Agency has sent a criminal referral to the DOJ accusing James of mortgage fraud. In a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Director Bill Pulte says James appears to have falsified records in order to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms. He cited a property in Virginia that she's allegedly claimed as her principal residence.
So these are all potentially, basic, simple, overt examples of criminal behavior. If you're falsifying records, documents deliberately, it's not difficult to prove. The rebuttal to what I said a couple of seconds ago, well, Trump has never stated, oh, please sue him for us. No, Trump has said Comey committed perjury. Leticia James, in James Comey's case, Comey, along with Brennan and others, set him up and framed him. He never worked with Russia. They used a dossier purchased by Hillary Clinton. This is true. These are all criminal acts. The fact that they were able to do so, utilizing bureaucracy and government, doesn't make it legal. What you heard prior was somebody just asking the Attorney General, it might have been before she won, Leticia James, to find some reason to sue Trump. Not, please sue Trump because he did this or that, or he committed a crime. So when Trump rails on people on Truth Social, he specifically states the criminal activity. Setting up and framing Donald Trump was a crime. Accusing Trump of being a Russian operative or colluding with Russia was a crime. There was nothing legal about that. The whole thing was fabricated with a dossier literally purchased by Clinton and the DNC after they, in their own emails, wanted to elevate Trump. So the same left-leaning pundits forget that Bernie Sanders was cheated, and they don't care. They'll just walk in lockstep with the Democratic Party. But they also forget, the Democrats, that they wrote that they wanted to elevate President Trump. So he couldn't have been a Russian operative because they wanted to elevate Trump. So how could the Clinton campaign and the Russian government both want to elevate and catapult Trump to the presidency? The whole thing was fabricated. And we know now from the ODNI and the Durham probe annex, which we talked about in the last segment prior, and be here tonight for the live stream, that all of these declassified documents are coming out now, proving that there was not a shred of evidence that Trump was a Russian operative. The whole thing is, you'd have to be a complete imbecile to believe any of it. But anyway, let's continue. The whole thing was fabricated.
And a property in New York that she claimed as a 4-unit structure instead of the required, instead of a 5, which Pulte says means she was able to get a different type and more favorable loan. Joining me now is Jonathan Turley, Fox News contributor and law professor at GW University. Jonathan, mortgage fraud is rampant in the United States. There's all sorts of fraud that's rampant. There's disability fraud that they've vowed to crack down on in the Trump administration. But this is another thing that they have vowed to crack down on because it costs real money. Your reaction to these allegations?
Well, obviously, the irony is perfectly crushing. This is a person who prosecuted Trump for everything short of ripping a label off a mattress. And among the charges that were brought in New York, in not just the civil but the criminal case, was making false or misleading statements to financial institutions. And one of these sections, Section 1014 of the federal code, is prosecuted. It took me about 60 seconds of a search to find cases that the Department of Justice brought against people who falsely claimed that property was their principal residence in order to get loans. So this is well-tread areas for the Justice Department. As for James...
So accusing Trump of fomenting a rebellion, or colluding with Russia, inflating his net worth. These are all absurd, outlandish leaps of logic that have no precedent in law. That's why the Supreme Court of the United States had to overturn the Colorado State Supreme Court when they tried to ban Trump from the ballot. That's why President Trump wins 93+%, almost 94% of the cases at the Supreme Court, and Democrats and federal judges are routinely on the wrong side of the Constitution, the wrong side of history. That's why Trump routinely wins at the Supreme Court. And by the way, he just pardoned a Texas Democrat today. The despot, the authoritarian, pardoned somebody from the opposing political party that went after him for 10 years.
If we apply the LETICIA James standard that she created, there'd be little question here. This seems pretty straightforward. What the administration is saying is this was not her principal residence. In fact, as a New York elected official, she had to say that her principal residence was in New York. This was an out-of-state residence. But also,
you folks have no idea what honey and
claim that in some of these forms, she actually states that her father is her husband in order to file as a married couple. So there's a lot of those questions. And as you know, the Supreme Court just stated earlier in March in a case called Thompson that they want to see knowing false statements under sections like 1014, not just misleading statements. These are misleading statements. Either it's your principal residence or it's not.
Or it's not.
Either you're married to your father or he's your father. So they can this can satisfy the Thompson standard.
Yeah, well, Jonathan, we reached out to the DOJ, and they have no comment on this referral. We also reached out to Attorney General James.
So the case was tossed out because of a technicality regarding the prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan. They're appealing, but they can indict both James and Comey during or before the appeal.
Who did not respond to us either. So again, everyone wants the best interest rate you can get. I understand that. But, she's a lawyer. She knows that when you sign a mortgage application, that mortgage application, if you're borrowing money, if you're not borrowing money, nobody cares whether it's your principal residence, except, where you file your taxes. But she decided to state that that was her principal residence, knowing it was not her principal residence. I didn't even know she had property. I mean, I guess she had property in Virginia and she has rental or investment property in New York. That's fine. But in the New York matter, to get the favorable rate, the building could only have 4 units. But it looks like the entirety of this building, it had 5 units, meaning it was in violation of the actual loan agreement. And again, this is not a novel application of the law, Jonathan. As you stated during the persecution of Donald Trump, she was using all these novel applications of law to go after him. This isn't novel. This is a black and white issue. You either did or you didn't.
Right, and this has been prosecuted in the past. Now, we have not heard her side of this, but these documents themselves are quite damning. It's hard to see how the residences listed were her principal residence.
And so this is why, ladies and gentlemen, both James and Comey wanted the cases tossed, because the evidence is abundant. Hit subscribe, be here for the live stream in a couple of hours. Thank you.